host, Andrew Romanella.
When you play Battle in Mario Kart and you don't turn off any of the items, there are bananas everywhere. I mean, it's like you're losing your balloons because you're slipping on bananas left and right. Bananas everywhere. What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to another edition of The Rome Show here on 12ouncesports.com, broadcasting live on YouTube, X, Roku, Amazon TV. I'm your host, Andrew Romanella. We got you for the next 30 and change. Happy Monday, everybody. February 17th, 2025. It's the final day of the Four Nations Cup, and the USA has solidified their spot in the championship game thanks to a 3-1 knockdown, drag-out game against Canada on Saturday, which we will definitely break down today on the Rome Show. We want to hear from you. The Romo Sapien, the listener, the person that tunes in every day at 7 a.m. So go ahead and do that on YouTube or X. You can also get the social media, the Rome Show 1. That's Facebook, that's X, that's TikTok, and that is Instagram. If you go to the Instagram story right now for the Rome Show 1, that's the Rome Show, the number 1. You can let us know your thoughts on the NBA All-Star Weekend. All right, we talked about this before heading into the weekend on Friday. We've talked about this a little bit in conjunction with the Four Nations Cup, but now I really want to know your thoughts, the fan that is, after watching the NBA weekend, the newly updated format, Kevin Hart and the NBA crew on the court live during the game. I want to know all your thoughts, okay? Because I have some of my own, which we'll get to at some point in this show, but what they're doing is all for the fans, so we want to hear from the fans. And then Daytona 500. Cars went real fast yesterday at Daytona Speedway, and William Byron wins his second straight Daytona 500. Thanks to a lot of cars banging around on the final few laps. So we'll give you some highlights from there as well. But we do Monday morning every week our top plays of the weekend, and this week we have 3 of them, and you guessed it, they are all from the United States victory over Canada on Saturday. Yeah, okay, starting with Connor Hellebuck in the first period, setting the tone for the game that he would have. He is your number 3 play of the weekend. That's the tone for the game. Connor Hellebuck in this contest, 25 saves on 26 shots. Heading into the tournament, Rocky Romanella told us that we might have the best goaltender in the league, in the world at this current moment, in between the pipes for us. And Connor Hellebuck was on display on Saturday, helping lead Team USA to the final round. Your number 2 play comes from this same game because Dylan Larkin had the game winner, and here's what it looks like. Number 2.
Ryan Leach.
Really wasn't the story of this USA versus Canada game. And if you hadn't seen these highlights or hadn't heard about these highlights, you're definitely not a sports fan, or you might not have a pulse. But to start this contest, Brady Tkachuk and his brother Matthew Tkachuk channeled their inner father from 1996. And JT Miller got into the mix as well. 3 fights in the first 9 seconds of this contest. You might say, Andrew, why is this your number 1 star? It's my number 1 star because the USA went beyond enemy lines. They got booed during their national anthem, and they said, we are going to set the tone 10 seconds into this contest. And I think they did just that. And it's not setting a tone like we're here to wax the Canadians. No, it was more of setting a tone that we're in this building. We're not afraid of the fact that not only are the 25 guys that are the best hockey players in your country trying to beat us, but we can clearly tell that every single person from this country wants us to lose and is booing us. So here is the American hockey team. And our number one play of the weekend is dropping the gloves to set the tone in the Four Nations Cup. Number one.
Uno.
And it is like 1996. What's he referencing? Well, besides the fact that that was the United States hockey program's first victory against Canada in international best on best play. That's right. Since 1996, when they hosted the World Cup of Hockey, something interesting about that is Keith Tkachuk, the father of Brady and Matthew Tkachuk, was not only on that United States team that beat Canada at the Bell Center in Montreal in 1996, the last best on best USA victory over Canada, but on Saturday, those three fights were the fastest fights 9 minutes into the game in international play history since 1996, the previous record held by, you guessed it, Keith Tkachuk, the father of Brady and Matthew Tkachuk, who set the record straight on Saturday. I don't know. Maybe dad called both of them and said, you want to set the tone for this game? This is how you set the tone for the game. But nonetheless, it was a gigantic victory for the United States. Jake Getzel had a great game because Canada went up 1-0 in this contest, but Getzel scored the first goal of the game for the United States about 5 minutes after Canada scored for the response. He had 2 goals and an assist. He netted an empty netter to kind of end it late. And then we saw the Dylan Larkin goal, 1 assist. 5.4 million people viewed this hockey game. And I ask you about the NBA All-Star Weekend because it happens to fall on the exact same weekend as the National Hockey League. And to remind everybody out there, okay, the Four Nations Cup is the NHL All-Star Game. If you've missed this, let's give you a quick Spark Notes recap. Four Nations is the best players from the NHL of those four nations: USA, Canada, Finland, Sweden. I believe they're the 4 most represented countries in the National Hockey League. There is some issues with Russia being banned from international hockey play right now, so I don't know how much that comes into play. But nonetheless, a large amount of National Hockey League players are from these 4 nations, okay? And in hockey, there's like a pride thing that exists. You throw your nation's sweater on and you black out. You don't remember you play for another team. You don't care that you play for another team. And this is bred inside USA hockey players from the jump, okay? World Juniors matters. The World Cup of Hockey matters, okay? The Olympics matter, okay? You're never going to find another sport where every single time a player touches the ice, it's going to be 100% of their effort. Every time a player puts on the sweater of his country, it's going to be the most prideful thing for them. That is how hockey players are born and bred. Okay, you watch a preseason NHL game, you watch game 20 of the National Hockey League, you watch game 82, you watch the first, second, third Stanley Cup playoffs. Okay, every player is going to be out there at a 1,010% clip. There's none of this starters play for 5 minutes in the first quarter. Oh, don't do too much to exhaust yourself. There's no red uniforms for the goalie in practice. Hockey players are born and bred and operates at 100% every single time they put a sweater on. There are officials on the ice and they're playing hockey. I don't believe, okay, that when it comes down to a hockey game, that there is such thing as taking your foot off the gas. So going into the Four Nations Cup, there was a lot of grumblings from fans of hockey teams that were not happy about this because they're afraid that in the middle of a playoff push, we're going to get our guys injured, okay? I hear you. I don't not hear you. But like at the end of the day, playing sports is playing sports. There's always a free chance of you being injured. You cannot deny the possibility of you getting injured. So therefore, you can't compromise the enjoyment of the sport because you're worrying so much about the injuries, i.e. National Basketball Association, i.e. National Football League. Their all-star games are atrocious and not entertaining because they do not take things serious like the National Hockey League. And don't get me wrong, the National Hockey League has changed its traditional all-star game to be a 3v3 tournament, okay? But they have also continually adjusted, i.e. the Four Nations Cup, to make sure there's the best of all worlds. And no, that's not a pun on it being international play. It is the National Hockey League having a pure understanding of what their fans want, okay? The traditional mid-level fan that's not a diehard hockey fan probably is falling more in love with the sport than they ever have because of this Four Nations thing, because they can get on board with rooting for Team USA. They can get on board with Canada booing the United States national anthem, and now you have a rooting and vesting interest in this hockey game, okay? It was like a miniature, maybe not as serious, though I think it's escalated quickly, version of the 1980 Miracle on Ice, okay? Our hockey team, made up of a bunch of college dudes, were going up against the greatest hockey team in the world in the USSR, and they were like almost unheard of to ever be beaten, let alone by us, the Americans, who had 18 to 22-year-old dudes in college playing on that ice. But think about what that win did for the United States. 45 years later, that is still arguably, if not the greatest moment in United States hockey history. Well, I'll tell you what, depending on what happens with the rest of this tournament, what happened 2 nights ago could be a top moment in United States hockey history again. And almost equally as important, because we don't make this a political show, and we're not going to go deep down this rabbit hole. But the fact of the matter is we live in a broken world, okay? Our society is broken. There's a lot of hate. Clearly, there's hate between countries that share borders, okay? And there's hate beyond the seas of just the countries that share borders. Our world is broken, okay? You scroll through Twitter after watching this hockey game, and you would never know that some of these jabronis on Twitter are talking about hockey, okay? Because that's where we are as a society. So when you look at this hockey game, you look at this, what's going on around us, and you say, this was kind of big. Like, there's a lot going on outside of sports that come in and now affect this. Because you know what everyone says, right? Sports is the candy store. Sports is supposed to be your release from reality. Well, over the last 10, 15, 20 years, that's not been the case. Evident by the Daytona 500 yesterday, when the president of the United States was on the ground celebrating the race. And I'm not saying that's a problem either. I freaking loved it. He was at the Super Bowl last week too. He's America's president. He wants to be foot on ground for America. But my point in that is not about him being there. It's about politics, and sports has crashed. It has crossed over. It has always crossed over. We might not have wanted to believe that it's crossed over, but it's always been crossed over. That's the history of international play. The level of care in an international match, no matter the sport, really does come down to what's going on between the countries. And therefore, because of all that, you take everything that's gone on between the United States and Canada over the last 6 months to 12 months as the presidential election has come and gone, and things have been said and things have happened in both countries, and you say, this game mattered. This game mattered a lot. And it kind of feels similar to 1980 when the United States beats Sweden in that game, or beats Russia, we'll call them, in that game, okay? But then has to go beat Sweden in the gold medal match, okay? Now, we don't know who the USA is going to play, All right. I got the stats from that game up on the board real quick before we take our commercial break, if you were wondering how things happened. But tonight we have Canada versus Finland, and we have Sweden versus the United States of America. Here are your four nations face-off clinching scenarios. If Canada wins in regulation, we get a rematch, Canada versus United States. However, on United States soil this time in Boston, Massachusetts. If Canada wins in overtime or a shootout, now they play Finland, okay? Then Sweden must win in regulation and they'll go to the final. If Sweden loses in overtime or loses in general, Canada's still in the final. If Finland wins in regulation, Finland's in the final. If Finland wins in OT or a shootout and Sweden wins in regulation, Sweden's in the final. If Sweden loses in overtime or wins in overtime, and Finland wins in overtime or a shootout or in regulation, Finland's in. And then Canada, so essentially Canada and Finland control their own destiny, but Sweden's there and has a chance still. So it's a wild, wild set of scenarios for the clinching of this Four Nations Championship. And if I'm the United States hockey team, I don't care, okay? Because the way this team is playing right now, they have the juice. They have the care. They have the want. So I wouldn't overthink playing Canada again. I wouldn't overthink Finland or Sweden. If I'm the United States, I'm just trying to have another game against Sweden that we play tonight, win, go 3-0 in pool play, and get yourself the most prepared for the championship game. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we're going to roll that conversation into the NBA, their All-Star weekend, and some things that they tried to change to improve their All-Star weekend, but we want to give you our opinions. Plus, I got highlights from William Byron winning his second straight Daytona 500. It's the Rome Show. It's 12-ounce sports. It's you, the listener. It's me, the Rome. And we got a commercial break. We'll be back after this.
Welcome to MyBookie. You're ready to create an account and start making money. And we're here to help. And remember, you can get a bonus of up to $1,000 on your first deposit. Now you're ready to bet. Just go to mybookie.ag, visit the sportsbook, click on your bet, and input the amount you want to risk or win in the bet slip. Yes, it's that easy. Just remember, at MyBookie, you play, you win, you get paid.
Yeah. The Rome Show, 12ouncesports.com. We broadcast live on YouTube, on X, on Roku TV, and Amazon Fire. I am your host, Andrew Romanella. We got like 5, 8, 10, 12, depending on how I feel, minutes left today on the show. We're talking USA Hockey beating Canada 3-1 and earning their place in the championship game of the Four Nations Cup. We are talking NASCAR, and we're talking NBA All-Star Weekend. We got a write-in from our favorite write-in guy. His name is Kai the Goalie. Kai the Goalie writes in, Mac McClung dunk contest. The rest was trash. He's talking about NBA All-Star Weekend. Rizzler was there too, Kai the Goalie adds. Yo, listen, Kai, I couldn't agree more, okay? Now, I want to be as respectful as I can to Mac McClung and his ability to dunk the basketball over a Kia or whatever the hell he was dunking over. kind of reminiscent of Blake Griffin doing that for the first time. I don't care. I don't care about Mac McClung. I don't care about Sam Castle or whatever the kid's name was. I don't want to see that in the dunk contest. Okay, what made the dunk contest elite was watching Michael Jordan and Vince Carter and Kobe Bryant and guys of that ilk flying through the air and slamming the basketball. And here's my thing, okay? I don't want to hear about injuries. I don't want to hear about the possibility of what could happen, because the point we made before the commercial break, if you missed it, get the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, just search the Rome Show podcast. The point we made before the break was that's why the NHL's Four Nations thing is awesome, because it's not about what you do with the players. You can make it a 3-on-3 tournament. You can make it a 3-point shooting contest. You can make it a free throw shooting contest. You can make it anything you want. Anything you want. But it has nothing to do with what you do with the game and everything to do with the players on the floor. So if the best players in the league will wake up, will step on the floor and play an actual 5-on-5 basketball game or actually be a part of the dunk contest, then we won't have to have these conversations of why is the NBA All-Star Weekend so boring? Or why is a guy named Mac McClung the 3-time slam dunk contest champion? Can somebody answer to me how many games Mac McClung has played in the National Basketball Association? 5. The dude is a 3-time dunk contest champion, but he's only played in 5 games in the National Basketball Association in his career. Not this year, in his career. That right there shows you everything you need to know about the problem with the National Basketball Association. Their players don't want to take it seriously. Their players don't want to engage in the All-Star festivities. Their players don't want to make it engaging for the fans. The players just want to not get hurt, okay? And that is exactly why it is broken. National Football League, why is your All-Star festivities broken? Because your players' effort level, not because the activities you choose. Now take yourself back to the National Hockey League, okay? And tell me, when did you ever think in that Four Nations thing where it's an all-star game? Just remember, everybody, this is their all-star break. They did this to replace their all-star game. When did you ever believe, ever, that wasn't an all-star game? Field Yates tweeted this, and I believe he depicted it perfectly. The NFL has turned the Pro Bowl into a flag football game. NBA All-Stars don't even break a sweat or play defense in their game. NHL players are throwing haymakers 3 seconds into the Four Nations game, and it looks like the Royal Rumble. This game rules. Yeah. And none of them have to care about that game, because let me remind everybody that this is an all-star game for the National Hockey League. Rocky Romanella writes in, and we'll figure out which one. I believe I'm starting to understand it.
Handle this to Rocky Romanella.
Me neither. He wrote, D-League guys in the NBA All-Star Weekend makes no sense. Exactly. They turned it into a tournament where it was like up to 40-point 5-on-5 tournament. One of the teams, coached by Candace Parker, had to win the Rising Stars game to be able to compete in the tournament. What are we doing? What are we doing? When in actuality, what everyone wants to see is Steph Curry and James Harden and Kevin Durant and LeBron James and Ja Morant and Anthony Edwards and Victor Wembanyama. They want to see them go at it. They want to see 40 minutes of legitimate basketball where the best 15 to 20 dudes in the league face off against each other. And I'm going to keep saying it. Doesn't matter what you change. Doesn't matter what you do. It has everything to do with the players. So, National Hockey League, you got it right. MLB, NFL, NBA, don't look any farther than your players as to how you can change your all-star game festivities. On the write-in, we had a few people write in, just cancel it. That's hilarious. I couldn't agree with you more. And it has nothing to do with the game and everything to do with the players. How can you have a good NBA All-Star game if you have players that don't care? I don't even need to go on because that's just the truth. Like, that's the fact. And Kai, the goalie, writes, we shouldn't have to work so hard to understand what's going on in all the All-Star games. Just roll the ball out there and play. I couldn't agree more. I've had a lot of fun, by the way, with Kai, the goalie's viewership of the Rome show. And Rocco Romanella, when not on Tuesdays, viewership of the Rome show. They're bringing some elite stuff to the table. Let's finish with something that I know is near and dear. Oh, wait, by the way, the NBA players had something to say about their All-Star game. This is Dame Lillard. I think as a league now, we look so deep into analytics and you hear people saying out loud, we want a 3 or a layup. Don't be shooting too many mid-range jumpers. You hear that, and I think it just kind of takes away from the originality of the game, I would say. It's meant to be played at 3 levels. It's meant to be played a certain way. That's Dame Lillard at the All-Star game on NBA basketball in general and how the game is losing interest from the fans. Well, it can't just be all threes. There can't be no defense. You have to do something to engage your fans. And generally, since they're coming for entertainment from the players, you play hard. They are entertained. Therefore, game doesn't lose its luster. I don't disagree with the analytics thing. We're seeing this in all sports. And Dame will take a little bit longer time to break this down as we get deeper into the second half of the NBA season. But there's a lot that goes around the All-Star weekend that kind of gives you an insight into where is this sport right now in popularity? What's going on in this sport? And when your own players are talking about All-Star festivities and you're talking about boringness of game, well, first off, you can control it, players, so start controlling it. But secondly, more than anything else, that's how you know you have a real problem. Let's finish with William Byron winning his second straight Daytona 500 yesterday. There were a few things went on, okay? First and foremost, 3.5 hours worth of rain delay, which is not easy for a race car driver, but they had to deal with it. And then, secondly, crashes all over the place. Late crashes that led to William Byron winning this race. He was in 9th place to start the final lap, and then these crashes happened. Check out some of this video.
There is Christopher Bell. Rescue workers.
Those guys end up being good. Now, here's what happens on the final lap. You don't watch NASCAR? You're crazy. You're crazy. You got to pop it on. Usually on Sundays. You got 2.5 to 3 hours of reckless abandonment, man. It is awesome. And the Daytona 500 every year brings you everything you want as a racing fan. You got the accidents, you got the fights, you got the speed, you got the changing of positions. I mean, and if you've ever watched NASCAR or understood NASCAR, it is a unbelievable sport. You got guys driving at 175 to 200 miles per hour, inches upon inches away from each other. They can't see outside the rearview mirrors that they don't have. You got a guy in your cockpit going, we got 87 on the left side, 87 on the left side. You got drifting, going on the right side here, go right side here. Got no room on the left, no room. It's phenomenal. Okay, so congratulations to William Byron. He won his second straight Daytona 500. It feels like every year you're getting a crash on the final lap of the Daytona 500. Rest in peace, Dale Earnhardt, who sadly crashed on the final lap of the Daytona 500, I think 26 years ago now, somewhere in that range. One of the greatest racers of all time. But it's going to give you everything. And it is a fun race. So it kicks off racing season. So now we got hockey with Rocky and racing with Rocky coming up for you in the next few weeks. And we hope you're ready for that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of the Rome show. But let me do this real fast because I feel like everybody deserves it. Ba, 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 na, na. Ba, 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 na, na. All right, real quick. While the song finishes, 51 and 49 right now are the Bananas, okay? And we're doing a pretty good job. We had the USA money line. We also had Sid the Kid with a point and 2 shots, plus he didn't have either of those. So tonight we're going to take Canada over Finland. I think Canada's going to win it. They want the rematch against the USA. And we're going to take the USA versus Sweden, and we are going to take the over of 5.5, and that's going to be our bananas tonight. 3 picks for you on the ice. We are 9 games over 500, so stick with us. I'm Andrew Romanello. This has been the Rome Show. I hope you had a blast. I always have a blast. It's Monday. Hopefully we'll see you Tuesday. Thank you to Kai. Thank you to Rock for tuning in. Hopefully we get Rocky on here tomorrow to talk more about the 4 Nations Cup. Until then, you have an electric day. And this is Andrew Romanello saying peace.
Thank you for listening.